Hello and welcome to this tutorial. We are doing a step-by-step introduction to Strapi. In this tutorial, we'll go through the beginning steps of how you could start a project just like the Food Advisor app. The Food Advisor app looks like this. Here we have a list of restaurants in Paris, and you see as we scroll down, we have more restaurants. Now, if we visit the Café Boulevard, what we'll see is a bunch of images, opening hours, details, location and contact information, and some reviews. Now what we'll do in this tutorial is create a Strapi app similar to this where you get to see how you would start it. So let's go ahead and close this window and begin. Let's go ahead and open up the terminal. Navigate to whichever folder you'd like to put the Strapi project into. Once you're there, we have a choice of two different commands to install and create a new Strapi project. One uses yarn and one uses npx. You have npx if you have Node installed. We recommend using yarn, so in this project, we are going to use that. If you don't have yarn and you don't want to install it, use the following command. npx create Strapi app, the project name, which is my project, and then quick start for the quick start flag. The yarn command looks like this. Yarn create Strapi app my project, and then quick start. Strapi will take a few moments to install, and because we use the quick start, Strapi will automatically install the needed packages, but also set up a SQLite database, which we'll use to prototype this project. In production, you would use another database such as MySQL, PostgreSQL, or MariaDB. You can use MongoDB with Strapi, but you would need to also develop using MongoDB on your development environment, which means that you can't use Quick Start. Using MongoDB and setting it up is just as easy as setting it up with Quick Start. You just need to have MongoDB running in the background and leave off the Quick Start flag. Let's go ahead and just wait for this to finish. As you can see, my browser window opened to the welcome screen. Here, we're going to go ahead and create a new administrator. We recommend clicking this to get all the news, and then just click Ready to Start. These are the getting started videos, and you can access them anytime, but for now we're going to close them. Underneath your name here, you're going to see Manage the Administrators. And here we have each of the administrators that are part of this project. From the dashboard, we can see users underneath the content types. We're going to go ahead and create a user for Paul Bucos. A user and an administrator are different. An administrator has access and rights to the administration dashboard. Administrators can, for example, add content, add plugins, and upload images. They can also create content types and otherwise deal with roles and permissions. A front-end user, or simply just user, is someone who interacts with your project through the front end. A front-end user can, for example, be an author of an article, make a purchase. It has an account. It may leave a review or may leave a comment. Right now, we just have an administrator, so our next thing to do is to create a new front-end user for Paul Bucos. To do so, click the Add New User, add his name, email, give him a password. We'll go ahead and confirm it, and then give him a role of authenticated. And there we go, we have now saved it. Let's go back to the dashboard. As you can see here, there's a big button here saying create your first content type. But what is a content type? A content type is a collection of data that's represented by different types of fields. For example, a content type, let's say called restaurant, would be used to show information about restaurants. A restaurant could have a name, a restaurant could have an image, and a description, and that would be, at a minimum, a content type about restaurants. But we could also add things like categories or another restaurant that it's with, including, the hours of operation. Basically, a content type is a sort of blueprint for the type of data that you want to keep track of and enter. You could say that a content type is the schema of your data structure. In the next part, we're going to go ahead and create a restaurant content type. So let's get going. Let's go ahead and create the restaurant content type. The first thing you need to do is actually give your content type a name. These names are singular and all lowercase. In this case, they'll be restaurant. Down here in the description, we'll say restaurant listings, and then click done. The next thing you see is a large selection of different fields that we can attach to this content type. We're going to do the name, and that's going to be a string. We'll call it name. And under advanced settings here, we'll go ahead and say it's required and that it needs to be unique. Let's add another field. This one would be a rich text field. We're going to call this one description. It also is required. And now let's go ahead and add another field. This field is going to be the media because we're going to have a large image for the restaurant. We'll go ahead and call this image. And under the advanced settings, also say it's required. Let's say that we're done, and we'll go ahead and save. Strapi is going to restart, and when it's done, we'll go ahead and go back to the dashboard. When you come back to the dashboard, you'll see that the create your first content type is no longer there. But we do need to create another content type. This is going to be for the categories. So let's go back to the content type builder, click on add a content type, and then from here, we're going to call it category. Remember, it needs to be lowercase and singular. And these are going to be called restaurant categories. Let's go ahead and click done. So the first thing for a category, it needs a name. So we'll go to string and say name. And this is going to be required and a unique field. Let's go ahead and add the second field. This is a special kind of field called a relational field. So let's click on that. And in here, we can go down and click on restaurant because that's where the relation is going to happen between categories and restaurants. And in this case, categories can and do belong to many restaurants, and restaurants can and do have many categories. And with this, we're good to go. So let's go ahead and go done and then save this content type. With the category content type saved, we can now add a group. And in this case, we're going to make a group for the hours of operation for a restaurant. So down here we see add a group. And for the name, we're going to go hours of operation. And in the description, we can simply say hours of operation. In the advanced settings, there's nothing we need to do here. So let's go ahead and click done. Now, this is going to have 3 strings. The first string is going to be called day interval. These are going to be the days that the hours apply to. And in the advanced settings, this is required. Let's add another field and another string. And this one's going to be called opening hours. And it is required. And now let's add another field, call it a string, and call it closing hours. We're done. And let's go ahead and save this and wait for Strapi to restart. Now we have content type showing category content type and the restaurant content type, and we have the group showing the hours of operation. We could have other content types that use this group, so we need to attach it specifically to the restaurant one. We do that by clicking on restaurant, adding another field called group, and under group we make sure that we select the right one. In this case it's called hours of operation. We got to give this a name, so we'll call it restaurant hours. It's repeatable because a restaurant could have multiple hours for different days. Under advanced setting, we're going to go ahead and click required. We're going to click done, and then we're going to go ahead and save it. Now that it's saved, let's go ahead and modify how the group is going to be displayed in the actual entry screen for the restaurant's content type. We're going to change the labels, and we're going to rearrange it a little bit in terms of the fields themselves. We do that in the Content Manager. We're going to go to Groups, and then in the Hours of Operations group here, these are the view settings. Now, let's go ahead and start by clicking on Opening Hours and dragging it right next to Closing. So now this will show up before closing hours. The next thing we want to do is change the label for day interval. It'd make more sense if it said day or days. And then in the description, we can paste in some instructions that say how to fill out this field. The next thing we want to do is go to Opening Hours and make this also a little reader nicer to read by typing in Opening Hours, and let's go ahead and do that also for the closing hours. With that done, we can go ahead and save this. It will ask us if we really want to confirm, and we'll say confirm for yes. Now that that is done saving, we can go ahead and add our first restaurant. Let's go over to Restaurants, click on Add a New Restaurant, give it a name, Biscotti Restaurant. We'll paste in some content there, upload an image, and now we need to enter in our restaurant hours, so we'll add a new entry. This is going to be for Sunday through Monday, and it's going to be closed. Let's add another entry. This will be for Tuesday through Friday. And the hours for Tuesday and Friday are from noon all the way to closing hours, which is at 22:30 or 10:30. And then the last entry is going to be for Saturday. And on Saturday, it's open from 11:30 all the way until 4 o'clock or 1600. So we can scroll up and press Save. So you see the Biscotti restaurant listed here. And the next thing to do is to add some categories and then assign them to this restaurant. So let's go ahead over here and click on Categories. We're going to add the first category by clicking on Add New Category, and we'll call this one French Food. And we'll go ahead and attach it here to the Biscotti restaurant. Then let's save it. Let's add a second category. We'll click on Add New Category and then click Brunch. Now we could go ahead and add it like we did the other one, but I want to show you the other and more common way to add categories to content types. Click back to Restaurant, go back to the same restaurant we were working on before, and if we click here, it's going to show us all the categories that are available to attach. In this case, we now see Brunch. So let's go ahead and save that. So now we've done everything we need to do for this restaurant. We've added the content, uploaded the image, set the hours, and we've assigned it some categories. So what's left? The next step is to modify the roles and permissions. So let's go now to the roles and permissions here in the menu. We're going to go ahead and click on the public. What exactly are roles and permissions? Well, what this means is when we're accessing our API, who can access the data and what can they do with it? Let me give you an example. For the restaurant, if we go find and find one, we see here that's going to give us the root. So let's open up here and go localhost and go restaurants. And we're getting an error code. It's saying forbidden and status code 403. And what that means is that we just can't get the data. So let's go ahead now and go find and find one for restaurant and do the same thing for category. And then we'll save it. Now that it's saved and we refresh, we're able to get the restaurant. And we can also do it with a find one by typing in the ID, which is 1. So now you've seen the whole process to how to set up and create a Strapi project, how to create a content type, add data, and otherwise start a Food Advisor project or any project that you would like to create. Your next actions could include doing additional tutorials that you'll find on our blog or in our documentation. You can get help if you need it from Stack Overflow. You can follow us on Twitter to get the latest news, or you could join our vibrant and active Strapi community on Slack.